While the old folk toiled in the open fields of the autumn plains, there lived other people who were far too busy fighting themselves to notice. These people were dubbed the Krait. The Krait are 5 feet tall on average, with short, stubby legs, moderate-length arms, and tails nearly as long as they are tall. These traits serve an important purpose in their social structure, being the metric by which tribal leadership is determined. The tails of tribal chiefs are often longer than the length of their entire bodies and drag behind them as they walk. The Krait tribes are nomadic, roaming from place to place as their wars with other tribes go on. They migrate not to escape the perils of the changing seasons or to chase their prey as they move. Instead, they migrate solely to find and control other mountaintops that rival tribes control. This, coupled with their high rate of reproduction, has created a horrifying cycle of violence where these tribes kill each other over the same mountaintop they killed each other over years earlier. This gives rise to the horrifying idea that they have been this way for time immemorial. This means that these noble creatures have spent seemingly all of their existence, which, I should add, is confirmed to have begun a very, very, very long time ago, killing each other over nothing. This foul line of thought is far too infuriating for even this humble and level-headed scholar to continue and to entertain, so I shall not. Accounts of the Krait began early in the settlement of Astilion. One of the earliest records of them comes from Mr. L. Moss Winter. In his account, he claims that he was mapping the western side of Landing's Perch when he came upon some Krait scouts from an ice tribe, his words. He recalls that upon first encountering each other, there was a terse silence for a brief moment before one of the scouts made an attempt to communicate with him, which he reciprocated to the best of his abilities. This exchange was difficult, but eventually the scouts beckoned him back to their camp. He writes that they shared their food and fire with him and gave him a set of woolens that were rather small for him. As night began to set, he decided to sleep through it in this camp, somewhat reluctant despite their seeming amiability. However, some hours later, he awoke to the sounds of a struggle and found that the friendly Krait were battling members of another tribe. Panicked, he hid as best he could. After the fighting had passed, he wrote, "There is so much blood here that the snow everywhere around has turned to a red slush." Following the fighting, the opposing scouts spared Winter, and, while still adorned in the innards of those they had just slain, invited him to spend the rest of the night in their camp instead. Once there, he was offered a similar set of woolens by this new tribe. Here he writes that he spent the entire rest of the night lying awake pretending to sleep until daybreak, whereupon he hastily bid his hosts farewell. With this experience now behind him, he returned to the fledgling settlement of First Landing and recounted the events of the night. Stories of peaceful interactions with Krait have grown over the centuries since the First Landing. Despite their unending hatred for each other, the Krait are otherwise non-violent. Reports of their attacking the people of Astilion unprovoked are few and far between, and they are wholly outweighed by the number of reports of their amiability. However, the most macabre, given how common a sight it is, are the remains of dead Krait, slain in pointless battles with each other. The eastern woodland is otherwise composed of a hilly forest that spans the continent from the autumn plains to the Sudari Sea. Long, winding streams find their way through the forest's many picturesque scenes to be united with the sea. Dotting the landscape in the woodland are the ancient wards. The 20-foot-tall trees are constructed of a marble-like stone that glows with a brilliant metallic sheen in the night. This stone has been dubbed metallicite. The construction of these wards matches no other civilization on Astilion or elsewhere, leading some, myself included, to conclude that these wards were erected by an ancient civilization lost to time. Early myths of the woodland recall a tree supposedly called Heaven's Reach, which reportedly stretched 1,500 feet into the sky. This tree, it's said, was the home of a gargantuan bronze dragon by the name of Almog. These records state that once a year, the elves settling near the tree would offer her a tribute of food and riches, gold, jewels, etc., for which she allowed these elves to make a new home in the tree and offered her protection to them. This tale ends with the staggering assertion that an army of old folk came down from the Heartlands Mountains and slaughtered all the elves and wounded Almog, who cursed them with the last of her strength, causing their disappearance. This myth has never been corroborated. No evidence exists for Heaven's Reach or Almog, and, while there have been ruins excavated in the Heartland Mountains belonging to the old folk, The assertion that the old folk only disappeared following the landing of the elves on Astilion is completely ahistorical. I have also heard tell of many old settlers' tales about giant beasts and insects, perambulatory trees that feast on the flesh of animals and people, and enormous predatory birds that were capable of scooping entire homes off the ground to be carried to who knows where. Now, the existence of these clearly fabricated stories is understandable. This temperate land, with its gentle slopes and fair weather, commands one's attention to its utter beauty, and it is to be expected that those who first stood here must have believed that something so serene must hide something supernatural. It is easy while walking through this land to find oneself lost in a daydream. Despite these inane, near ramblings muddying the validity of just about everything written by the original settlers in this area, the hardships of settling here and foraging their way to the heart of Astilion must have been difficult to overstate.